So we are back with another author spotlight. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo, and I'm here to do another author spotlight. I think that's what I'm going to call these types of videos now, for Zoraida Cordova. And if you're not familiar with this author, she's both a YA author and she has a romance trilogy as well. But she's primarily a YA author. So if you have watched any of these videos in the past, you know how this is going to work. We're going to go through all her books. I'm going to give you my overall thoughts on her work, and then I'm going to give you a recommendation whether I recommend her to you or not. So without further ado, let's get into the books. So up first we have the Brewhouse series, and this is a YA trilogy focusing on three sisters. The first book is called Labyrinth Lost. The second book is called Brewhouse Born, and the third book is entitled Wayward Witch. You do have to read these in order because they are interconnected, but they are technically standalone, so you can read one and not read the other two and still be able to follow the story, but you will be spoiled for the books that precede it. So the way this whole series kicks off, we follow, I believe, our middle heroine. She's the middle child of the three sisters, and she's about to come of age and have like her magical quinceañera, if you want to call it, where she basically comes into her own powers and learns how to control her powers. But she doesn't want to become a Brewhouse, so she finds a spell to relinquish her powers, and in doing that she just unleashes chaos and her family gets being like trapped in hell, if I'm not mistaken. And so talking about the series overall, I really enjoyed each of the books. I give them all 4 out of 5 stars. A really fun, engaging series that is diverse, that explores a different culture and different mythology in like this urban fantasy space. I guess you can call it paranormal a little bit because there are Brewhouse, there are like demons and all that stuff that exists in this world. But I really did like this series. The characters, the sisters, were all incredibly well fleshed out, and I love getting to see each of their journeys through their own entire book. Now there are some overarching threads that kind of connect the whole series all together, and one book's events definitely do affect their next books, but I would say for the most part they do have their own unique narrative that's tailored to the sister, so don't feel like you're kind of getting shortchanged a little bit, because that's not the case. I don't even know where I was going with that, but I hope you guys can understand what I'm saying. But overall, I really did like this trilogy. Next, let's talk about her romance trilogy as well. I believe this is a Luck on the Something series. I can't remember the series name off the top of my head, but the first book is Luck on the Line. Second book is entitled Luck on the Ledge, and the third book is entitled Life on the Line. Now these are all the same thing, very similar to the Brewhouse series. These are all interconnected standalones, but this is definitely contemporary romance, so there is no paranormal or magical realism aspects to this book. It's just straight up contemporary. And I would have to say these are not on the spicier side. They're very tame. I would say maybe out of 5, they're like a 2 to 3 in terms of steam level. Not quite steamy, not overly spicy, but I think they will really work for a lot of mainstream romance readers. And for me personally, I thought these were just okay. The characters were a little bit forgettable. The plot wasn't all that intriguing. The steam wasn't quite there for me. So I gave all these books around like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So not the best, but not the worst, if that makes any sense. Very middle of the road for me. And then finally, I have her latest duology, which is now complete. The first book is entitled Incendiary, and the second book is entitled Illusionary. With these two books, this is way more on the fantasy side than the Brewhouse. I would say Brewhouse is very much straddling that line between contemporary and urban fantasy. It definitely has some fantasy-like elements, but it's not full-blown fantasy. And in these books, or I should say this duology, it is a full-blown fantasy, because you have this huge amount of world building that goes on. It's kind of based on, I would say, Latinx culture, specifically Mexican culture. I could be completely wrong by that, but that's the kind of vibes that I got from it. And in this book, and in this duology, you basically have almost like your prototypical narrative. We have our main character. She's kind of fighting the injustice that is present in her society, that's kind of being perpetrated by the king of this area in which he lives. I'm doing a really bad job explaining this, but you know, like those stories where like you have like your underdogs going against like someone high in power and trying to wrestle away power from that one entity to better lives of the people in the community. That's kind of this narrative. So it's not something very unique in my perspective, but the world and the other details that Cordova adds to the story make it unique. So like the story in and of itself is very overdone in YA, but I like the infusion of her culture and that heritage in this book as well, and that's what makes this a little bit different. So we follow our main character Renata. She's basically almost like your chosen one savior in this entire book. We find out through a certain set of twists and circumstances that she has this incredible power where she can basically kind of take people's memories and visualize them a little bit. And so that kind of plays into the plot a little bit, and it's basically her journey trying to figure out her place in this world and how she's able to overcome the evil in this world. That is a really bad synopsis. I'm really sorry. I'm trying to be as vague as possible, not give away too many details, but that's in a nutshell, that's what the book is about. But overall, I liked it. It wasn't my favorite. I gave both of the books 3 out of 5 stars. I definitely would say the Brooklyn Brewhouse is still my favorite of all her series that Cordova has written. She does have a Star Wars book that has been published, but I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars, so I'm not going to be reading that. But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was. I felt like the characters were a little bit middle of the road for me. I definitely liked our main heroine. I liked her banter with the prince in this book, and I love their little mini kind of enemies to lovers as plot to them. And in addition, I did like the plot of the book. It was a little bit predictable because, like I said, it's a very well-known kind of story archetype that you see in YA. And it didn't do too much to deviate and kind of add to that plot structure to kind of make it seem more interesting or kind of throw the reader off a little bit. But it was still a fun plot. It delivered on what it was promising to do. The action was top notch, and I would say Cordova is very bloodthirsty in these books. There's a lot of characters being killed off in a little bit of gruesome ways. So if you enjoy that, if you enjoy that kind of if you enjoy that kind of Sabaa Tahir kind of realness and violence in your YA, you will probably like this series as well, because there are a decent amount of deaths and they're pretty surprising and gruesome, if I do say so myself. But overall, I liked it, didn't love it, and definitely think it's a solid duology. Let's talk about all the books that I read by Zoraida Cordova and kind of give you my overall thoughts and impressions on her work. I love how she infuses her own culture and heritage in her works, because I feel like with that just infusion and life that is breathed into these books, it kind of translates them almost into something new and something fresh, because we have seen a lot of witch stories or a lot of your fantasy duology stories where there's this evil king and the king must be overthrown to save the land. We see these type of narratives before, but I like that she infuses that Latinx culture in these books, because I feel like it's bringing much needed representation and diversity into the YA space, and I just appreciate the book so much for that. And the books are easy reads. They're very quick to get through, they're very action packed, and they're very engaging reads. Now let's get to the dreaded question that you've all been kind of waiting for. Do I recommend this author to you guys? And I would say yes. I would say if you're a fan of YA and you like kind of your fantasy, urban fantasy, very magical type narratives in the YA space, you will love these books. Especially you will love to see the different takes on the story coming from a different cultural background than kind of your Eurocentric heteronormative narratives that you see in the YA space. So if you like that, definitely say you go recommend check out her YA stuff. But then I would say if you're interested in getting into romance, her romance trilogy is very solid and a very great easy gateway into the romance genre as a whole. It's not overly spicy, but it's just enough where it wouldn't turn off most readers. And like I said, it's very mainstream. So I definitely feel like if you already love YA and you're looking for more diversity in your YA, this author should definitely be on your radar. But also if you want to kind of dip your toes in a little bit in romance while still being connected to a YA author that you know and that you probably might love, then I would say go check out her Love on the Line series. I think that's what it's called. Don't quote me on that. And I think you would enjoy that as well. So there is no way you can go wrong with this author. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know down in the comment section down below if you have read any of these books, and let me know which one of these books are your favorite, or if you haven't read this author, let me know as well if you're going to be picking up any more books from this author based on my review of this author's work. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys with a brand new video. Peace.